Hi there, I'm Kelsey, and I'm going to be sharing with you a verse from Proverbs. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Proverbs 3:6. We put our trust in God instead of in ourselves when we acknowledge him. When we let him into our decisions, when we say, God, I trust that you will lead me to where I need to go, that is where we find the deepest joy. It's a special joy, infinitely more fulfilling than the mere pursuit of happiness. Going after happiness isn't the goal in this life. The goal is to pursue full satisfaction in our Heavenly Father. This is the way to true joy. The sooner we internalize this truth, the more joy we will experience as we rejoice in Him. That reminds me of a total God moment that I had last week. I'm sure some of you have heard about the AP testing situation this year. Normally, students take these tests for about 3 hours, confined in gyms with proctors looking on. That wouldn't work for this year, so the College Board decided to make each test totally online and cut it to 45 minutes. This year, I took AP Spanish, and I was pretty worried about the AP test. In the before times, it would have been filled with multiple choice and writing essays and just a little bit of speech. The new test was just speech, which is not really my strong suit. So even knowing this, I didn't prepare nearly as much as I should have, so I was even more stressed the day of the test. I stammered all the way through the practice test and was just really worried. But about half an hour before the actual test, I took a breath and said, okay, this is not an ideal situation, but I don't need to worry because God is here. So casting my worries aside, I began. The first section was a mock interview, where a recording asked me questions and recorded my responses. We had about a minute to prepare, so I jotted down some helpful vocabulary, and the recording began. Here's where the God moment kicked in. I was a little shaky in my first couple of responses, but midway through, my brain went on some sort of autopilot and started giving these eloquent answers. I felt like I was watching somebody else talk. When the interview was done, I danced around my room in joy. Where in the world had that come from? It could only have been God. The final section was next, the cultural comparison. I had 4 minutes to prepare a 2-minute presentation comparing my own community with the Spanish-speaking community while answering the prompt. Knowing that God was on my side, I was much more confident, and while the recording gave instructions, I thought about some Spanish-speaking communities that I was personally familiar with. The last one I wrote down was the Galapagos Islands, with the thought that maybe I could say something about how they use boats like cars, since it's a group of islands. Imagine my awe and wonder when the prompt that happened to come up was the importance of knowing how to drive. Thanking God, I set to work and gave what was probably the best cultural comparison I've ever given. After the test was over, I was so thankful, filled with joy at what God did when I trusted Him.